Hello, hello. Welcome back to Loki's Library, and if you are new here, welcome. I am your librarian, Katrina, and on Sundays I do a thing called Books and Booze where I review a book and mix up a cocktail. This month I am looking at the Wild West, but since we have 5 Sundays this month, I am starting with a fiction book, specifically from the Weird West subgenre, making this week's book Cold as Hell, a Black Badge novel, Black Badge number 1, by Rhett C, Bruno and Jaime Castle. Could be Jaime, but I'm going with Jamie. I don't know why. I'm just in a mood. So anyways, I wasn't real sure on which cocktail I was going to make until like the very last chapter when one of the characters is drinking a Sazerac, which I have not made yet, but is the oldest cocktail. It's actually considered, I think, the oldest cocktail, initially created in 1838 in New Orleans. A Sazerac is a jigger of bourbon or Scotch, a dash of absinthe, a dash of Italian vermouth, and a few dashes of Peychaud's bitters, at least according to the book my mother-in-law has that was published in 1941 and predates all of the websites, which basically just makes it a glorified old-fashioned. I thought, this sounds more interesting, so we're going to do this one. So let's do this. Now, Weird West, if you don't know, because not everybody is familiar with this one, it is a novel set in the American West, like heyday American West, you know, Billy the Kid, Wyatt Earp, Tombstone, Deadwood, Lonesome Dove, which is fiction but is set in the West. But it includes the supernatural, like vampires, werewolves, shapeshifters, or in this case, a Yeti. So let me back that up just a bit. I'm actually using the official jigger of Scotch. If it gives it ounces, I go in ounces. If it's a little more loosey-goosey, then I'm going with the loosey-goosey. So the hero of the story is James Crowley, who was killed in a shootout approximately 20 years before the story starts. There's not really a set timeline. I'm just guessing from context clues. Splash of absinthe. Italian vermouth. Basically, it's more or less sweet, but Punta May is an Italian vermouth, so that's what I'm going with. I already had it on hand. In fact, I had everything on hand, which made this cocktail pick very easy. Okay, so he's killed in a shootout approximately 20 years before this story starts. Again, from context clues. Now, I initially assumed, based on the story, that one redeeming act of his life that was performed near the very, very end of is what earned him this place in purgatory as a black badge. And it's, you know, Earth for us humans, but he's not human anymore. He was dead, legitimately dead, and now he's back as kind of a, I don't want to say revenant, a lich. You know, he's an intelligent dead. He's not just a mindless zombie, but he's acting on orders from God, basically. That was a very hefty dash of Punta May. I'm not sure how. I'm not so sure now that it was because of that redeeming act. But that's more because of the epilogue, which I don't want to go into because, spoilers, the book is not so old that I feel I can go around giving out full play-by-plays and, you know, spoilers. But now I'm kind of wondering if my assumption was correct. I'll have to read the rest of the series, I guess, to find out. I did 3 dashes of... My review's not very long, so I am rushing through making this cocktail. Let me get this shaken up really quick. So anyways, Crowley, having been killed in a hail of bullets, was...
ripped you tight and raised you from perdition.
Except it wasn't Castiel. I mean, his angel is Chargraphine. He calls her Char, which irritates the hell out of her. Her full name is Chargraphine, and she has a job for Crowley, which is to stop a trio who have been robbing banks with the aid of supernatural powers, which the White Throne has pegged as demonic in origin. White Throne doesn't care about the ordinary sins of man, rob a bank, whatever, you do you, boo. But when you pull in the demonic to help you out, that's a problem. The White Throne has a problem with it. Now, Crowley is a black badge, all right? His marshal's badge is literally engraved in his chest. No one knows what he is. Most assume he's a bounty hunter because that's just easier than trying to explain what he is. Sounds less crazy than I'm God's justice here on earth, right? So he just lets them think he's a bounty hunter and he's out for the bounty on this trio of bank robbers. Let's try a Sazerac. I think I understand why that was my mother-in-law's favorite for a while. I think that's what I told my husband I was making a Sazerac, and apparently he told his mother, and she showed him this book, and he sent me pictures of the recipe so I would have it. I'll include a picture of the book up here, so if you want to find it, you can. He heads to the site of the last bank robbery and finds that death has already happened. Due to the deputy lost his cool and accidentally shot the sheriff in the back of the head. Friendly fire is always a risk, but rather than confirm for the deputy what the deputy already suspected, Crowley kind of does a little investigating and discovers that one of the culprits is a Yeti. Now, Yeti in this universe is not an abominable snowman, not what we would think of as Yeti, the residents of the Himalayas, who scare away hikers in this, on the mountains of Tibet or whatever. That's the final result, not necessarily that they end up in India or Nepal, but that's the end result. But it's not natural. It's not like the zoocryptologist, right? It's a wholly supernatural phenomenon. It's when a soul becomes so enraged that it seeks assistance from hell, a demon takes up residence in their hearts. And in this universe, hell is not hot. It's ice cold. Hence the name of the book, Cold as Hell, right? So as the demon gains a deeper hold on its victim, the person who made the bargain slowly morphs into a Yeti and is able to wield ice as a weapon, calling down hailstorms and snowstorms, creating ice walls as a shield, throwing ice cubes basically as fast as bullets. So they can wreak some real damage with their hellspawn powers, which, of course, it's hellspawn. It should be damaging. Now, Shar sends him towards the next town, and in a big old heaping pile of foreshadowing, his black badge starts to twitch as he gets pulled off mission to confront a Nephilim. Now, his badge will start to itch and twitch when he's in the presence of another supernatural, basically. Not real sure if the other supernaturals will know him as such, but he knows them. And Char's irritated. She doesn't want him to go off course, but he does, and he saves a girl and ends up with a magic harp. And that's all I'm going to say on that. Now, unlike in Supernatural, Nephilim do not look human. All right, typically lean more towards the demonic branch of the family tree. So this one looks kind of like a Pan figure from Greek myth. Crowley does his best to save the ensnared couple and saves one of them. And then has this Pan's pipe, which plays a role later in the story. But enough on that. No more spoilers. At the next town, he arrives as the robbery is taking place and notices some unique markings on one of the robbers. It says the Yeti is not the only supernatural being taking part in the robberies. And it's the only one that's causing his badge to twitch, but it's not the only supernatural there. Char is less than pleased with his performance in this town because the bad guys get away and leaves him on ice for a bit, both metaphorically and literally speaking. And when she breaks him out this time, his only friend, who is also his incredibly smart horse Timperina, is waiting for him as they continue to track the bad guys and try and solve what the hell is going on. And it all leads back to, of course, a genuinely bad guy, but he's just mortal bad, your average sinner. And so that's not what's causing the White Throne to have a fit. It's still the Yeti. But he's trying to find, being Crowley, is trying to find justice. All right, not necessarily just who the White Throne wants dead, but he's looking for justice on this plane for the people who have to deal with these assholes. And so the denouement was satisfactory. I was quite pleased with it. The bad guy who's at the heart of it all is, again, merely mortal, not doing anything other than being an absolute scummy human being. And the bad guys, the bank robbers, are not as bad as all that. They just wanted justice in a world where they couldn't get justice, and so they turn to demonic powers to seek it out. And along the way, he meets an old friend. He meets an Irishman who is set on learning all he can about the supernatural. The old friend helps him out at several key moments. And they have it set up as an interesting... In any other story, it would be a love interest, but from everything he describes as a black badge, the only pleasure left to him is the ability to sleep. He can't feel anything, like physically. He can't eat anything. He can drink, so he can do the facade of it, but he doesn't get any actual pleasure from it. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if she is going to be a love interest. Again, this is something that will have to be explored in the later books, I guess. Like I said, I am happy to go all in with nonfiction books, but, give you a full play-by-play, but I always try to be circumspect with fiction so as not to ruin the story, especially with recent fiction. And this one was released in 2022 initially. It's had Books 2 and 3 were released in 2023 and 2025, respectively. So this is a really new series. There was an audible and or graphic novel prequel released in 2020, which is called Dead Acre. So I don't want to wreck the story. I don't want to go too much into it, but this was a fun book. It kept me reading. To make sure that I don't just bury myself in book and forget about life outside of nerddom, I give myself a designated page count every day. So, I read 50 pages, 40 pages, however many pages are in the book, I divide it by the days of the week that I have to read it. And this one kept me reading past my designated page turning, and then I made my husband read it. So, it was fun. I enjoyed it. If you like the Weird West, I would highly recommend Black Badge 1, Cold as Hell by Rhett C, Bruno and Jaime Castle. And if you liked what you saw, don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you guys next Sunday. Bye.